Good evening, dear listener. Tonight we return to a city wrapped in fog, a city whose narrow cobblestone streets echo with tired footsteps and distant coughing, a city that is about to meet a darkness it does not yet understand. It is the year 1347. The air is cold and damp, and a young girl named Evelyn walks home beneath a sky that carries the first quiet warning of a storm unlike any other. The fog hangs heavy over London this morning, a thick woolen blanket of grey that clings to the narrow alleys and twisted chimneys like an unwelcome spirit. Moisture beads on the worn cobblestones, turning them slick beneath Evelyn's boots as she steps carefully through the winding street. Her breath rises in pale clouds in front of her, swallowed instantly by the gloom. Wooden signs creak overhead, hanging from rusted iron hooks, their paint peeling, their colours dulled by years of soot and cold. The distant toll of a church bell echoes faintly through the mist, each chime carried by the slow, damp wind. Evelyn pulls her cloak tighter around her shoulders as she walks. She is almost 16, tall for her age, with dark brown hair braided neatly down her back and a quiet steadiness in her eyes. But today that steadiness trembles ever so slightly beneath her ribs. London feels different this morning, quieter, darker. There is a smell in the air too sharp, earthy, tinged with something metallic, like damp iron left under winter rain. She steps aside as a cart rattles past her, pulled by a thin horse whose ribs show through its matted fur. The driver coughs a deep, rattling sound that makes his entire frame shake. He wipes his mouth with a dirty sleeve and mutters a greeting as he passes, but there is no strength behind it. Evelyn notices this immediately. There has been more coughing lately everywhere. In the market square, in the alley by the candle shop, even at school, when she sat in the back row practicing her reading. It is like the city is losing its breath, one person at a time. A rat skitters across her path, pausing on top of a pile of garbage, rotten vegetables, broken pottery, bits of old cloth. Its beady black eyes glisten in the weak daylight before it disappears into a gap between two wooden crates. There have always been rats in London, but lately there seem to be more. More scratching in the walls at night, more darting across the streets in broad daylight, more small dark shapes where they should not be. Evelyn tries not to think about it. Her mother always says the mind makes monsters bigger than they are. She turns onto Pudding Lane, her boots making soft splashes in the shallow puddles that cling to the uneven stones. The air grows warmer here, thick with the smell of fresh bread baking somewhere nearby. She follows the scent eagerly. Her mother needs a loaf for supper, and Evelyn takes pride in being trusted to fetch it herself. The bakery sits tucked between a leather tannery and a candle maker, its wooden sign hanging crookedly above the door. Warm orange light glows through the small windows, fogging the glass with gentle breath. Inside, she can hear the muffled voices of customers, tired, low, strained. She pushes the door open. A bell tied to a string jingles softly. Heat washes over her, carrying with it the comforting smell of yeast, flour, and warm crust. The interior is dim but cozy, the shelves carved from dark wood, the counters dusted with fine white powder. A few loaves sit cooling on the table near the back, steam curling upward from their golden crusts. But the atmosphere is not as warm as usual. Two customers stand near the counter. Both look pale, faces drawn, lips dry, eyes glassy. One leans heavily on the edge of the counter, coughing into his hand with a rasp that seems to scrape his throat raw. Evelyn shooshes to the side instinctively, clutching her cloak to avoid brushing too close. Behind the counter stands the baker, Mrs. Wemberley, a stout woman with broad shoulders and flour dust in her dark hair. She forces a smile as she hands a loaf to one of the sick men. "There you go now," she says, her voice warm but strained. "Try to rest today, dear." The man nods weakly, barely able to lift the loaf. He stumbles toward the door, leaving behind a faint trail of wheezed breaths. The other customer follows him out, coughing into the sleeve of his tunic. The door closes. The bakery falls quiet. A mouse darts across the far shelf, quick, small, and almost invisible against the wood. It lingers just long enough for Evelyn to see its damp whiskers twitching before it slips behind a crate of flour. Mrs. Wemberley notices it too. Her smile falters. "Oh, do not mind that," she says, waving a hand dismissively. "Just a little pest. Nothing unusual." But Evelyn can see the worry in her eyes. The lines around her mouth are deeper today. Her hands tremble slightly as she reaches for a fresh loaf. Evelyn steps forward. "Good morning, Mrs. Wemberley. My mother sent me for a loaf, please." The baker nods quickly and grabs one from the cooling rack, wrapping it in cloth. "Of course, dear," she says. "How is your family?" "We are well," Evelyn replies softly. "My father has been working late at the carpenter shop. My brothers are playing sword fight again." Mrs. Wemberley smiles at that genuine this time, though faint. "That is good to hear. Keep them out of trouble." Evelyn gives a shy laugh. They try. But as Mrs. Wemberley ties the cloth around the bread, her hand pauses. Her eyes drift to the door where the coughing men had just left. Her breath catches slightly. Her fingers tremble again. "Strange times," she murmurs under her breath. Her voice is barely above a whisper. "Strange times lately." Evelyn tilts her head. Are people very sick?" she asks gently. Mrs. Wemberley stiffens, like someone caught revealing too much. She forces another smile, too wide, too quick. "Oh no, nothing out of the ordinary," she says. "Just winter cough. Happens every year." But her eyes betray her. There is fear there, a fear she is trying hard to hide. The bakery feels colder suddenly, despite the warmth of the ovens. The air feels heavier, thicker. Evelyn takes the wrapped loaf from the counter, her fingers brushing the coarse cloth. "Thank you," she says softly. Mrs. Wemberley nods, but the worry never leaves her eyes. "Take care on your way home, dear." Evelyn steps out into the fog. The bell rings behind her. The door closes. The street greets her with a gust of cold wind that chills her cheeks and carries the distant sound of coughing, deep, sharp, echoing across the rooftops. She clutches the loaf to her chest and begins the walk home, the fog growing thicker, the shadows darker, and a strange feeling settling into her stomach. Something is happening in London. Something she does not yet understand. But the city knows, and the city is beginning to tremble. The fog grows thicker as Evelyn leaves the warmth of the bakery behind. It coils around her boots like pale fingers rising in low drifting clouds across the street. The air has a damp weight to it, heavy with the smell of wet wool, old smoke, mud, and the faint, sweet rot of garbage piled in corners of alleyways. Her cloak clings to her shoulders from the moisture, and she shifts the loaf under her arm to keep it dry. The sound of distant market chatter drifts through the fog, muffled and blurred as if wrapped in layers of wool. But beneath those sounds, beneath the clatter of cartwheels, the barking of dogs, the chatter of vendors she hears coughing. Everywhere. Soft coughs, harsh coughs, wet coughs, coughs that echo between the brick walls like an omen. She walks carefully along the uneven stones. Some are cracked, some slick with moss, some sunk deep into the ground from years of carriage wheels crushing them. Rats dart between the gutters, small shadows with gleaming eyes, disappearing under broken doorsteps and beneath piles of spoiled vegetables. Their squeaks mingle with the groaning of wooden shutters opening and closing in the cold wind. Evelyn swallows tightly, trying to keep her breathing steady. She turns onto a narrow lane that leads toward the church district. Here the houses grow taller, their upper stories leaning over the street like watchful old giants. Thatch roofs drip with moisture, candles flicker behind cloudy window panes, barely illuminating the silhouettes of families finishing late chores or huddling near fires for warmth. Evelyn adjusts the loaf in her arms. It is still warm. The heat faintly seeps into her cloak and steadies her nerves. Her mother will be grateful. Bread has not been easy to come by lately. Prices have risen. People speak in low voices about rumors of shortages. But Evelyn S. mother always finds a way selling pies at market, mending clothes for neighbors, doing small favors for the butcher in exchange for soup bones. Evelyn tries to shift her thoughts to lighter things. Her brothers running around the yard with wooden swords, their father pretending to be a giant monster as he chases them through the mud. Her mother singing softly as she kneads dough or stirs thick broth in the blackened iron pot. But her mind keeps returning to the men in the bakery, their pale faces, their trembling hands, their tired eyes, their coughs. She shakes her head as she turns onto Church Row. At once, the fog parts enough for her to see the tall, dark silhouette of the local church. The wooden tower rises proudly into the grey sky, its pointed roof piercing the mist like a ship's mast pushing through storm clouds. The wooden planks are old and weathered, darkened by rain, smoke, and time. The churchyard fence is made of thick iron bars, twisted in ornate loops like vines captured in metal. The gate stands slightly ajar. Evelyn slows her steps. She glances down the gravel path leading to the courtyard. Normally, this area bustles with quiet activity. Mr. Phillips, the gardener, is usually out trimming hedges, watering the small herb garden, or sweeping fallen leaves from the path. He is a short man in his 50s, with a round belly and a wide smile that pulls deep laugh lines across his cheeks. He always greets Evelyn with some tale from his younger days, stories of riding camels in the African desert, or watching lions stalk their prey from behind thorny bushes, or sailing on strange rivers where crocodiles bask in the sun. She had never known which of his stories were true, but she always loved hearing them. Today, he is not here. The churchyard is quiet, too quiet. The fog moves slowly across the ground, curling around gravestones like white snakes. Evelyn steps closer to the iron fence, one hand clutching the cold bars. "Mr. Phillips," she calls softly. No answer. "Hello? Are you there?" Still nothing. The fog shifts again, and then she sees something. Something that freezes her breath in her throat. Bodies. Not one, not two. A dozen, perhaps more. Lying on the ground of the courtyard. Pale faces, limp limbs, clothes wrinkled and dirtied as if dropped where they fell. Some are covered with sheets that cling to their outlines. Some are uncovered faces turned toward the sky, eyes half open. Evelyn's hand slips on the iron bar. A gasp escapes her lips. Her stomach twists sharply, and the warm loaf under her arm feels suddenly heavy, like a stone. Two gravediggers work at the far side of the yard. Both wear tattered cloaks, their faces wrapped in cloths that cover their mouths and noses. They stand knee-deep in a large pit, damp soil piled around the edges. Their shovels scrape against the earth with slow, labored movements. One mutters something to the other. She cannot hear the words, but she can hear the tone, fearful, weary, hopeless. At the edge of the yard, a priest stands, hands clasped, head bowed. His robes billow gently in the cold wind. His lips move in silent prayer as he stares at the bodies. Evelyn's pulse begins to race. She presses her face closer to the bars, trying to understand what she is seeing. Her breath fogs the cold iron. Her fingers tighten until they ache. Where is Mr. Phillips? He would never leave the courtyard like this. He would never abandon his duties, especially not on a day when the church needs him most. Her thoughts spin. She steps back from the fence, shaking her head slowly, as if it might clear the confusion. Her chest tightens. Her breaths grow shallow. She does not understand. Why are there so many? Why are they lying there with no procession, no ceremony, no families nearby? A sudden gust of wind rolls across the courtyard, lifting the edges of a sheet covering one of the bodies. Evelyn flinches as she sees the limb beneath a hand with swollen, reddened fingers. Skin-stretched, tight skin blotched with dark patches. She steps backward, stumbling slightly on the uneven stones. Her heart pounds hard in her chest. Her breath feels like it cannot fill her lungs. This is wrong. All of it is wrong. And the fear that has been whispering at the edges of her thoughts now roars like a voice too loud to ignore. She turns sharply and begins to walk away. Her steps are quick, then quicker. Her cloak swishes around her legs as she breaks into a run. The loaf presses against her ribs as she clutches it tightly with both arms. Her breath turns hot in her throat, each inhale sharp and trembling. She does not look back at the churchyard. She does not want to see the bodies again. She does not want to see the fog curling around them like a shroud. She does not want to think of the gardens empty without Mr. Phillips tending to them. She runs, through the fog, through the narrow alleys, past coughing townsfolk who barely look up as she rushes by, past the piles of garbage where rats scurry and squeak, past the old wooden houses leaning close above her. Her boots splash through puddles. Her breath grows ragged. Her eyes sting from the cold wind. Thoughts scatter inside her mind like startled birds. Why were there so many bodies? Why were the gravediggers wearing cloths over their faces? Why did the priest look so frightened? Where was Mr. Phillips? Why had the bakery customers seemed so ill? Why was the entire city coughing? Her throat tightens again. She feels the weight of something terrible settling inside her chest like a stone sinking slowly into deep water. Her home is only a few streets away now. She can see the faint outline of her house through the fog, a small wooden building with a stone chimney, the faint smoke of a fire curling up in a thin grey ribbon. She wipes at her eyes with her sleeve. She needs to get home. She needs her mother. She needs answers. She needs comfort. She needs to understand what is happening. She slows as she turns onto her street, her breath trembling, her heart still racing beneath her cloak. Her home waits ahead, warm light glowing through the single front window. The faint sound of her brothers shouting and laughing drifts out into the fog. Nothing seems wrong here. Not yet. Evelyn clutches the bread tightly and takes a steadying breath. Her hands shake. Her thoughts swirl. The city feels sick. The streets feel wrong. Something terrible is moving unnoticed among the people, and she does not know what it is. She only knows one thing with certainty. She has to tell her mother. With trembling hands and footsteps heavy with dread, Evelyn walks the final distance toward her front door, the fog swallowing the world behind her. The wooden door creaks softly as Evelyn pushes it open. Warm air rushes out to greet her, the familiar scent of stew simmering on the fire, of herbs hung above the hearth to dry, of the faint sweetness of burning oak. It envelops her like a blanket. For a moment, she closes her eyes and lets herself breathe. Inside, the room glows warmly from the flames dancing in the fireplace. Shadows flicker over the wooden beams overhead and across the rough stone floor. Her youngest brothers, Thomas and Henry, sit cross-legged on the floor, building small castles out of scraps of wood their father brought home from the carpenter shop. Their faces are flushed with excitement, their laughter ringing through the house like tiny bells. Her other brother, little Wilfred, only 8, stands on a chair with a wooden sword in his hand, swinging it valiantly at an imaginary dragon. His tunic hangs crookedly from his shoulders, and his hair sticks out in every direction. The normalcy of it all hits Evelyn like a wave of warmth and sadness at once. "Evelyn," Wilfred shouts when he sees her. "Mother said you would bring bread." She forces a smile and lifts the wrapped loaf. Of course, fresh from Mrs. Wemberley's oven. Wilfred cheers and jumps off the chair with a thud that rattles the mugs on the table. Their mother turns from the large iron pot suspended over the fire. Elise Harper is a woman of gentle strength, with long dark hair tied back under a woven cloth and warm brown eyes that often see more than she says. Her sleeves are rolled up, her hands red from the heat of the pot and the washing she had done earlier. She wipes them on her apron as she approaches. "You are home later than usual," she says softly. "Did the bakery have long lines?" Evelyn hesitates only a moment, but her mother sees the pause. A faint crease forms between her brows. There were sick people in the bakery," Evelyn says quietly. "A lot of them. They looked pale and weak." Her mother's eyes flicker barely, but enough. She nods slowly, taking the loaf from Evelyn's hands. "There has been coughing everywhere," Evelyn continues. "More than I have ever heard." And she swallows hard, her hands slipping into the folds of her cloak. "And when I passed the church, there were bodies." The word hangs in the air like a stone dropped into still water. Her mother freezes. Evelyn continues before courage leaves her. A dozen, maybe more, lying in the courtyard. The grave diggers were digging a big pit. "I did not see Mr. Phillips," and the priest looked frightened. Silence fills the house. Even Wilfred stops swinging his sword, turning his wide eyes toward their sister. The fire crackles, popping softly as sap burns away in the wood. Their mother sets the loaf on the table and exhales, the sound quiet but heavy. She forces a small smile. "I am sure it is nothing more than winter fever," she says, though her voice wavers slightly. "People are weak this time of year. The cold takes its toll." Evelyn hears the words, but she also sees the shadow behind them, a darkness in her mother's eyes that was not there yesterday. Her mother touches Evelyn's cheek gently. "You did well to come home quickly," she says. "Now wash your hands and help me set the table. Evelyn nods, but she cannot shake the image of the bodies lying in the churchyard. She cannot ignore the tremor in her mother's voice. She goes to the wash basin near the corner of the room. The water is cold, biting against her skin. She scrubs until her fingers feel numb, watching dirt and fog residue swirl down the drain hole in the wooden basin. She hears her brothers whispering behind her. Thomas asks Henry what a dozen bodies looks like. Henry shushes him, casting nervous glances at their mother. Evelyn dries her hands on a cloth and begins placing mugs on the table. The kitchen glows with warm afternoon light now, though fog still presses against the windows like a pale, heavy curtain outside. Her mother ladles mushroom soup into bowls, rich, earthy, steaming. The smell fills the room with a comforting, homely warmth. But Evelyn cannot ignore the tension sitting quietly beneath it. Her father is not home yet. He should be. He usually arrives earlier than the soup. She glances at the front door for the fourth time that minute. The door finally swings open. Her father steps inside, stamping his boots to shake off mud and fog. He is a tall man with broad shoulders from years of carpentry work, his hands thick with calluses, his beard trimmed but speckled with sawdust. He forces a smile as the boys run to him, shouting happily. "Easy, easy," he laughs, ruffling their hair. "Let your poor father breathe." The warmth of his voice fills the room, but something about him is off. His face is pale, too pale, his lips almost bluish at the edges. He hugs Wilfred, but winces slightly as he bends. Then he straightens, clearing his throat quickly and stepping toward the table. "Long day?" their mother asks gently. "The longest," he says, rubbing the back of his neck. Everyone is complaining of coughs. 2 men left the workshop early, could barely stand. Her mother freezes again, only for half a heartbeat. Then she nods. "We will talk later," she murmurs under her breath. Evelyn senses it, a heaviness, a shared secret, something her parents know but are not saying. They sit down to eat. Steam rises from the bowls. The boys chatter about wooden castles, sword fights, and stories from school. Evelyn tries to join them, forcing a smile when Wilfred shows her a small wooden figure he carved with her father, says help. But her eyes keep drifting to the door, to the windows, to the fog outside. It presses against the glass like a living thing, and faintly, from beyond the houses in the distance, she hears coughing, far more coughing than should belong to a peaceful evening. Her father eats quietly, too quietly. He barely touches his soup. When he reaches for his cup, his hand trembles slightly. Evelyn's heart begins to pound again. Something is wrong, terribly wrong. She hesitates, then lets her eyes drift to his left hand, the one holding his spoon, and she sees it. A swelling, a rounded red boil just below the edge of his sleeve. Angry and raised, skin tight and hot-looking. She stiffens. Her spoon slips from her fingers and clatters softly against the wooden bowl. Her father looks up sharply. "Father," she says quietly, "your hand." He pulls his sleeve down quickly, too quickly. Her mother's eyes flash with fear as she glances at him. "What is it?" Evelyn whispers. Her father clears his throat, a strained sound, a sound too forced to be honest. "It is nothing," he says, "just a scratch from work." His voice shakes. He pushes back his chair, almost knocking it over. I will wash up." "Excuse me." He stands. His knees wobble slightly. Her mother rises with him, placing a hand on his back gently, as if guiding him without making it obvious. "Go lie down," she murmurs softly. "I will help you." He nods, avoiding Evelyn sighs, and walks slowly toward their bedroom. The door closes behind her parents. The latch clicks softly. Evelyn sits frozen at the table. Her bowl of soup steams silently in front of her. Her brothers continue eating, unaware. She hears Thomas humming a tune their father taught him. Henry telling Wilfred to eat slower before he chokes. Normal sounds, happy sounds, but they cannot drown out the rising dread in her chest. Her father's pale face, his trembling hands, the red boil under his sleeve, the bodies in the churchyard, the coughing in the streets, the worried look in the baker's eyes. She presses a hand over her heart. It pounds against her palm in heavy, trembling beats. Something terrible is happening. She can feel it. She does not want to believe it, but deep down, she knows. London is sick. Her father is sick. The city is changing. And the darkness Evelyn saw today is only the beginning. The house is quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels tight, stretched, fragile like a sheet of thin ice over deep, dark water. Evelyn lies on her straw mattress beneath a wool blanket, staring at the wooden beams above her head. The glow from the dying fire downstairs flickers faintly through the cracks of her loft, casting thin stripes of orange across the ceiling. She pulls the blanket tighter around her shoulders, but the cold creeps through anyway. Not the cold of winter, the cold of fear. She has been lying awake for hours, listening, thinking, feeling. Her brothers sleep beside her in a row, Thomas curled like a kitten, Henry hugging his pillow, little Wilfred snoring softly with his mouth open. Their breathing is steady, warm, innocent, but Evelyn keeps her eyes wide open. Her mind keeps returning to her father's pale face, to the red boil beneath his sleeve, to the bodies in the churchyard, to the coughing in the streets. And now, in the silence, her thoughts feel louder than anything outside. She tries to calm herself. She repeats the prayers her mother taught her when she was small. But each time she closes her eyes, she sees that courtyard again, cold, silent, full of bodies that should not be lying in the open like sacks of unwanted grain. The wind moans softly outside the window. Fog presses against the glass so heavily it looks like a sheet of dirty cloth trying to seep into the room. Evelyn turns onto her side, clutching the blanket. Something feels wrong. She can feel it in her ribs, in her throat, in the cold prickling on the back of her neck. And then she sees movement, a shadow gliding through the fog beyond her window. Her breath catches, slow, tall, dark. She pushes herself upright, careful not to wake her brothers. She edges closer to the small glass opening, wiping away a smear of condensation with her sleeve. What she sees makes her stomach twist. A long black hooded figure stands outside the house opposite theirs. The stranger's cloak is heavy and drapes all the way to the ground. But the face is hidden behind a long curved mask, a beak-like shape that protrudes from the hood, smooth and pale, like the skull of some enormous bird. The figure lifts a gloved hand, knocks, 3 slow, heavy knocks. Knuckles against wood echo in the night. Evelyn presses her hand to her mouth. She has heard whispers about plague doctors traveling through nearby towns, men who wear bird-like masks filled with herbs to keep the miasma away, men who go where death has already taken root. She had hoped never to see one. But now, one stands at their neighbour's door. Miss Andrews opens the door halfway. Her hair is unbraided, and her nightdress is wrinkled, clinging to her thin shoulders. Her eyes dart back and forth between the doctor and the street, as if afraid someone might see. Her mouth moves frantically, pleading, begging. Evelyn cannot hear the words, but she knows the tone. Fear. Desperation. The doctor steps inside, without speaking. The door closes. Evelyn feels her heartbeat thundering in her throat. She has seen enough to know something is terribly wrong. But before she can even step away from the window, a scream pierces the night. Not from outside, not from the neighbors, from her parents' room. A small, choked, panicked scream cut short, muffled by a trembling voice. Evelyn S. Blood turns to ice. She leaps from her bed, her legs bare and cold against the wooden floor. Her brothers stir, but none wake fully. She rushes to the ladder, gripping the sides tightly as she climbs down. The main room glows, only faintly, from the embers in the fireplace. The shadows seem too thick, too alive. Her breath fogs in front of her as she crosses the floor, her feet silent. Another sound breaks the hush, a low groan, heavy with pain. Evelyn pushes open the door to her parents' room. What she sees steals the breath from her chest. Her father sits on the edge of the bed, hunched forward, his back exposed. Her mother kneels behind him with a damp cloth, her hands shaking. Candlelight flickers, making the small room feel warm and suffocating at the same time. Her father's shirt is tossed on the floor. His skin, once strong, tanned from years of working wood, now looks stretched, swollen, blotched with dark patches. Large boils cover his back, not one or two, but many, red, angry, bulging. Some the size of apples, some smaller, all burning with inflammation. His breaths are short and shallow. Sweat drips from his brow, tracing lines down his pale cheeks. His hands tremble in his lap. He tries to stay upright, but his strength is slipping. Her mother dips the cloth into a bowl of cold water and presses it to his back again. The water turns pink from the wounds. Tears spill silently down her mother's face. Evelyn steps inside slowly, her eyes wide. "Mother," she whispers. Her mother turns around sharply. Her face is streaked with tears and soot. Her eyes shine with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. "Evelyn," she says softly, voice cracking, "go back to bed." But Father Evelyn's voice trembles. He is sick. He is very sick. Her father lifts his head. He tries to smile for her, a weak, fragile thing that collapses almost instantly. He tries to speak. A cough racks his chest. He clutches his side, wincing. "It is nothing," he gasps. "Just bad air." Her mother shakes her head sharply, her eyes flashing with grief. "Do not speak," she whispers to him. "Save your strength." Evelyn steps closer, the room spinning around her. "How long has he been like this?" she whispers. Her mother hesitates, looks at her husband, then back at Evelyn. "A few days," she says softly. "He had a boil one, but now they have spread. I did not want to frighten you." Evelyn feels her knees weaken. A few days. Only a few days. The sickness has moved this fast. Her father coughs again, each exhale wet and ragged. His body trembles under the strain. Evelyn reaches out, but her mother snaps her hand back, firm but gentle. "No," her mother says quickly. "Do not touch him, please." Evelyn freezes. Her mother's voice trembles as she continues. It spreads through the air, through closeness, through touch. Her eyes lower to the candles flickering on the bedside table. "This is not winter fever," she whispers. "Something has come to London." A chill spreads through Evelyn's body. Her breath grows shallow. Her father groans again, leaning forward so his forehead nearly touches his knees. Sweat drips onto the floor. His hands grip the blankets so tightly his knuckles turn white. Her mother dips the cloth again. But her movements are slower now, weaker, as if she has been doing this for hours, without rest. The room smells of sweat, blood, and herbs, a bitter mix of lavender, vinegar, and fear. Evelyn steps backward, pressing her hand against the wall for support. Her eyes burn with tears. Her father, the strongest man she knows, reduced to trembling agony in a matter of days. Her mother, trying to hold everything together with shaking hands and a breaking heart. Outside the window, something moves again. Another plague doctor enters the street. Another door opens quietly. Another house is swallowed by the night. Evelyn's breath trembles. The fog gathers along the floorboards like a rising tide. Shadows cling to the corners of the room, and the screams and coughs of London echo faintly in the distance. She realizes something with bone-deep certainty. The sickness is here, not approaching, not arriving, here, already inside their home, already claiming the man she loves most, already spreading through the city like a silent storm. Her father groans again, collapsing back against her mother's shoulder. Evelyn steps closer, tears falling freely now. "Father," she whispers, "please, please hold on." But he does not hear her. His eyes have closed. His body trembles with fever. Her mother presses the cloth to his forehead and whispers prayers under her breath. The candle flickers. The shadows shift. And Evelyn stands frozen at the foot of the bed, watching her world break apart one breath at a time as the Black Death continues its silent, unstoppable creep through the night. The morning light creeps into the Harper home slowly, as if afraid to enter. It slips through the cracks in the shutters in thin white beams that settle over the stone floor and the wooden table. The fog still presses against the windows like damp cloth, muting all color, muffling all sound. The fire in the hearth has burned low, only faint red coals remain beneath the ash. Evelyn stands in the corner of the room, watching her younger brothers tie their cloaks and gather their books. Thomas grins sleepily as he tries to buckle his boots. Henry yawns so wide it makes Wilfred laugh. Wilfred adjusts his satchel twice, then a third time, determined to look grown. They chatter like birds, unaware of a storm overhead. Their mother stands near the door, trying her best to smile for them. Her eyes are ringed with exhaustion. Her hair, usually neatly tied back, has slipped from its braid. Her hands shake slightly as she straightens the boys' collars. "Mind your manners," she whispers, brushing a thumb across Thomas' cheek. "Go straight to school," she tells Henry. "And listen to your teacher," she reminds Wilfred, who nods with exaggerated seriousness. The boys do not see the fear behind her words, the fear that trembles beneath every shaky exhale. But Evelyn sees it. She sees everything now. Her brothers leave with quick kisses and cheerful goodbyes, stepping into the fog that swallows them instantly. Their footsteps fade within seconds, drowned by the distant coughs and rattling wheels of morning carts. The door closes. A heavy silence settles in their place. Her mother leans against the wood for a moment, shoulders sagging. Evelyn steps beside her. "I will stay with him today," she says quietly. "I want to help." Her mother nods, grateful and weary. "Thank you, my sweet." They move together toward the back room. Her father lies where he was last night, barely moved, barely breathing. The sickness has taken hold with ruthless cruelty. The boils on his back have multiplied, swelling into painful red lumps that pulse with heat. Dark patches stain his skin. His lips are cracked. His breath is shallow, each inhale a soft, wheezing gasp. The room smells of herbs and vinegar and something else, something sharp, something foul, something that makes Evelyn's stomach twist. Her mother dips a cloth into a bowl of cool water and presses it to his forehead. He stirs, groaning softly, though his eyes do not open. Evelyn sits on the floor beside the bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She watches. She listens. She helps with small tasks, fetching water from the basin, wringing cloths, adjusting the blankets whenever her father shivers. Hours pass like this. The world remains quiet, broken only by the crackle of coals, the faint creak of wood under shifting weight, and the occasional cough that escapes from the street outside. Evelyn's mother murmurs prayers under her breath. Prayers for mercy, prayers for healing, prayers for strength. But Evelyn knows. Deep inside, where childhood cannot hide the truth anymore, there is no healing from this, not for him, not for many. Her heart feels heavy, like a stone has settled inside her ribs. Around midday, a knock echoes through the house. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Her mother stiffens instantly. The cloth slips from her hand and splashes into the water bowl. Evelyn's breath catches. The knock comes again. Her mother rises, wiping her hands on her apron. Her steps are hesitant as she crosses the main room. Evelyn follows her own legs, trembling. She opens the door only a crack. A cold draught slips inside. So does the smell. Herbs, rubbed leaves, copper, and something sour she has never smelled before. Standing in their doorway is a figure taller than any man she has ever seen, cloaked in black from head to foot. The long, dark robe hangs like heavy nightfall, and over the face sits that terrible white mask, the long, curved beak filled with spices and dried flowers meant to ward off poisoned air. Glass-round lenses hide the eyes. A plague doctor. He stands silently for a moment. Fog swirls around his boots. The beak mask tilts slightly as he studies Evelyn's mother. "I was told there is sickness in this home," he says. His voice is hollow, distorted by the mask, like someone speaking from the bottom of a well. Evelyn hides behind her mother's skirt, gripping the fabric so tightly her knuckles ache. Her mother nods slowly. "My husband," she whispers. "He is very ill." The doctor steps inside without waiting for permission. Evelyn flinches. Her mother closes the door behind him, as if sealing the world outside. The doctor moves through the room with slow, deliberate steps. The herbs hanging from his belt sway gently with each movement. Evelyn feels her skin crawl. Everything in her wants to step away from him, to run, to hide. He reaches the bedroom door and pauses. "I must examine him," he says. "Stay behind me." They do. The air feels tighter as they enter the room. The doctor kneels beside Evelyn's father, inspecting his skin, lifting his arm, checking the boils with gloved hands. He presses his ear to the man's chest, listening to the rattling breath. Evelyn watches every movement with wide, frightened eyes. After several minutes, the doctor sits back on his heels. His mask turns toward the 2 women. His silence says more than words could. Her mother swallows hard. "Tell me the truth," she whispers. "Please." The doctor's voice emerges low and heavy. "The sickness has taken deep hold," he says. "There is little we can do for him now." Evelyn's throat tightens. Her mother's hand flies to her mouth. It spreads quickly. The doctor continues. "Fever, lumps under the arms, blackening skin. It is death that moves through breath and touch." Her mother chokes on a sob. Is there any chance?" she asks. The doctor shakes his head slowly. He grows weaker each hour. His chances are small. Evelyn's eyes burn. She feels a tremor move through her chest. "What must we do?" her mother asks, voice quivering. The doctor stands. His robes rustle like heavy wings. "You keep him clean, cool, comfortable," he says, "and prepare yourselves." Her mother's voice breaks. "Prepare for what?" "For his passing," the doctor answers. The room falls silent. Only her father's ragged breaths break the stillness. Evelyn's legs feel weak. She grips the doorframe as tears gather in her eyes. The doctor turns to leave. At the doorway he pauses, lowering his voice. "This sickness will spread," he warns. "More will fall ill. More will die. You must protect the children. Keep them away. Keep the house closed." He steps into the fog. Her mother closes the door slowly behind him. Her hands shake uncontrollably. Evelyn hears her whisper a prayer she can barely finish. The rest of the day moves like a dream. A slow, heavy dream. Her father grows weaker. She helps her mother change cloths, bring water, adjust blankets, whisper calming words. Night falls. Morning rises. Days pass in a blur. Her father slips in and out of consciousness. He murmurs their names. Sometimes he calls out in fevered delirium. Sometimes he does not move at all. By the end of the week, he is gone. Her mother weeps in a soundless way, her shoulders shaking, her hands pressed to her lips. Evelyn sits beside her father's body, holding his still hand as if it might warm again. The grave diggers come at dawn, faces covered, hands gloved. They take him gently, quietly, with a single nod of sympathy. He is buried that afternoon in a large trench beside the church. Many others are buried with him. Fog hangs low over the graves like a shroud of mourning. But the sickness does not stop. It spreads, faster, fiercer. Within 2 weeks, London changes. Evelyn walks home from school, one cold grey afternoon, clutching her cloak against the wind. She turns a corner and freezes. Bonfires, large burning pyres built at the edge of the square. Flames tear through piles of bodies stacked like firewood, some wrapped in sheets, some not. Faces catch the fire and vanish in ash. Smoke billows upward, carrying a heavy, terrible smell. Evelyn covers her mouth with her sleeve, tears streaming down her face. Children run. Adults pray. Plague doctors move between houses like dark ghosts. The world she knew is gone. The laughter of her brothers feels far away now. The warmth of her home feels fragile. Her father's absence weighs on her like a stone she cannot lift. This is a hard time for the world, a time of shadows, a time of fear, a time when even the sky seems dimmer. But Evelyn stands in the square, watching the flames rise, and she whispers a silent promise. She will survive. She will remember. She will carry her father's love through whatever darkness comes next. For this is not the end of the story of humanity, only the darkest chapter in its long, winding path. The sun hangs low over rolling green hills, warm, golden, gentle. A soft breeze drifts across tall grass, carrying the sweet smell of wildflowers and sheep wool. Birds sing lazily from fence posts. Clouds drift in long, white curls across a bright, open sky, far removed from the thick grey fog of London. Evelyn stands outside a small stone cottage, her hands resting on the wooden railing of a sheep pen. Her dress flutters softly in the breeze. Her hair, once braided tightly by her mother's hands, now falls loosely over her shoulders, streaked with early threads of silver. She is older, wiser, steady, in a way that only someone who has survived unthinkable loss can be. Behind her, 2 children chase each other across the pasture. Mark, her son, 10 years old with messy hair and a laugh that echoes down the hillside, and Lucy, 7, with bright eyes and curls that bounce as she runs. They are healthy, happy, free from the fear their mother once knew. "Stay where I can see you," Evelyn calls, her voice lifting on the wind. "Yes, mother," Mark shouts, waving an arm as he dodges his sister's grasp. Lucy tumbles into the grass, giggling, before popping back up with a determined smile. Evelyn watches them with a warmth blooming in her chest. There are days she still cannot believe she made it here, to a life so peaceful, so quiet, so full of light, after surviving a world swallowed by darkness. When the children grow tired, they trot toward her, cheeks flushed and hair tangled. "Mother," Lucy says, tugging at Evelyn's sleeve. "Tell us again. Tell us the story of the fog, the one in London." Mark flops onto the grass beside her boots. "Yes," he says breathlessly, "the story of how you survived the sickness." Evelyn kneels beside them, her skirt brushing against the wildflowers. She smooths Lucy's curls and rests a gentle hand on Mark's back. "That story is not an easy one," she says softly. "Are you sure you want to hear it again today?" Both children nod eagerly. Evelyn smiles with a quiet sadness in her eyes. "All right," she says. They sit together in the warm grass, the sheep grazing lazily in the background. The hills roll out endlessly behind them, green and gold and peaceful. Evelyn begins. "When I was your age," she says softly, "I lived in London. It was crowded and loud, full of people and carts and chimneys that reached into the sky. But one year something terrible came." Lucy scoots closer, hugging her knees. "A sickness," she whispers. "Yes," Evelyn nods. "A sickness none of us understood. It moved through the city quietly, at first people coughing in the streets, rats running across the stones, fog hanging thick like a blanket over everything. And then it grew worse, very quickly." Mark's eyes widen. "Did you know it was coming?" "No," Evelyn says. "None of us truly understood at the beginning. We only knew something felt wrong. And then people began to die." The wind passes gently between them, stirring the tall grass. "I was 16, Evelyn continues, "still a child in many ways. I went to school, helped my mother with cooking, chased after my brothers. We lived simply. We were happy." She pauses, swallowing softly. "But then the sickness came to my street, to our church, to our neighbors. One by one people fell ill. Lucy reaches for her mother's hand. Evelyn squeezes it gently. My father grew sick, she says quietly. He tried to hide it from us, but I saw the truth in his eyes, the boils, the fever, the way his breath grew thin. Mark leans forward. You tried to help him. Yes, Evelyn answers. Your grandmother and I stayed by his side as long as we could. But there was nothing we could do. The sickness was too strong. She looks toward the horizon, the hills rising and falling like the breath of the earth. When he passed, she continues, I thought I would fall apart. I thought the world would end. So many families lost someone. Some lost everyone. Her voice grows softer. But we survived. My mother, one of my brothers, and I. We survived because we took care of each other, because we stayed together, because we kept hope, even when it felt impossible. Lucy looks up at her with bright eyes. Was it very scary? Evelyn brushes a hand over her daughter's cheek. It was the most frightening time of my life, she says honestly. Everything felt unfair. Everything felt uncertain. The world did not feel safe. She glances between her children, her voice steady. But we endured. And from that hardship, we became stronger. We learned what truly matters. Love, family, accepting that sometimes the world is cruel, but never letting it steal the good that remains. Mark tilts his head. But how did you stay brave? Evelyn smiles softly, a smile full of sorrow and strength intertwined. By remembering that fear is not the end, she says. By reminding myself that life keeps going even when it feels impossible. And by believing that we could build something better once the darkness passed. She gestures to the cottage behind them, the fields, the sheep grazing peacefully. And we did. Look around you. We have a home. We have land. We have each other. Your grandmother lives in the house just over the hill. Your uncle visits every summer. Life did not end with the plague, it changed, and we changed with it. Lucy leans her head against her mother's shoulder. Mother, she whispers, will something like that ever happen again? Evelyn wraps her arms around both children, holding them close. The wind picks up, carrying the scent of blooming heather. Life is full of hardships, she says gently. There will always be sicknesses, storms, losses, and moments of fear. But there will also be healing, sunlight, laughter, new beginnings. What matters most is that you keep going. You hold your loved ones close. You stay strong, even when the world feels heavy. Mark nods slowly. Lucy closes her eyes, resting in the safety of her mother's embrace. Evelyn looks over the hills again. The open sky, the rolling fields, the distant outline of her mother's cottage. She survived the plague. She survived heartbreak. She built a new life from shattered pieces. And now she carries her father's strength. Inside her strength, she passes on to her children. Remember this, she whispers. Even when life feels unfair, even when everything changes, you are stronger than you know. People are strong. Families are strong. And you will always have the strength to rise again. Lucy squeezes her hand. Mark leans against her side. And for the first time in many years, Evelyn feels complete peace. The wind sighs softly through the grass. The sheep graze quietly. The sun warms her back. And her children sit close, safe and loved, listening to the story of a mother who walked through darkness and found her way into the light.